And now I'd like to invite up Christian Lönnholm, who is the, let me get this right, CEO of MuchDifferent, which is a nonprofit devoted to developing over-the-top technology, as he says. His path to becoming CEO of MuchDifferent has been a little bit divergent, let's say, because he started off working as a bomb technician for the Swedish army. Then he was in charge of project management systems at several engineering companies. And he also worked as a documentary filmmaker for Finnish television. And as we found out yesterday, both at lunch and at dinner, he's equally adept at speaking about politics and economics as he is about gaming. So with that, I'll turn it over to him. Christian.
Thank you. Thank you. Ooh, looks a little different. Oh. Well, thank you for that wonderful presentation. So, my name is Christian. I come from Sweden, and the company's called MuchDifferent. And I call this presentation, I think this is, sorry. Where's this one? Yeah. I call this presentation Good Tool, Bad Tool. Basically, we do tools at MuchDifferent. We make tools that help other people make games. And we, one of the things, it's very rare, actually, that people make tools, get the attention of the world audience, but we actually managed to do that earlier this year.
Let's talk.
Okay.
Better?
It's better? Thank you. So, earlier this year, we managed to, well, oh, now, yes. Now you can see what I'm talking about. Yes, my name, my title, my company, and we make tools. We make good tools. But I'm going to talk about good and bad tools. And earlier this year, we made world news. We made a world record game about just cramming as much people into one battlefield as possible. And we managed to put 999 players in the first-person shooter game in the browser. And everybody could see everybody, everybody could shoot everybody. The Guinness World Records was there, and so was actually half of the game developer community pitched against the gamers. And it was actually real fun. And maybe someone in the audience was actually part of this. No? Oh, there. Oh, great. So people from all over the world played, and importantly, no lag. And another tool that we've done, which is actually changed the way we make online games. And here on the YouTube, we have a demonstration on how we made a single-player game into a multiplayer game in 5 minutes, like 5 minutes from start to finish, 5 minutes without even using code, just dragging, dropping, pointing, and clicking. And this technology we used also in the world record attempt. But what makes a good tool? As I told you, we... Put it down. Hi there. Sorry about the sound, but you all heard what I tried to say before. Good. So what makes a good tool? Because we want to make good tools, right? So we thought about this a lot, and this is my explanation. They should be like your friend. And there you see my friend Anders with his puppies. He's crazy about dogs. But what does Anders have in common with a good tool? Well, this. Good friends, they understand you. They understand what you want to do, maybe even before you start doing it. They help you. They help you. And they're to the point and direct. They don't going to tell you 2 weeks later that you were acting like an asshole, right? They tell it directly and to the point. And they're reliable. They do what they're supposed to do, what they say you do. And they're forgiving when you make mistakes. And this is really important, especially when the tools that we make is basically online games. How people, game developers, makes online games is one of the hardest disciplines in the game making, circus. So, And they also support you when you have that crazy idea. When you want to go beyond what everybody have done before, you want to do something your own, you want to try something, experiment. They should support you when you do that. And maybe most important of all, it makes the boring, everyday stuff fun, like shopping groceries. Normally, that's not fun, but if you do it with a good friend, it's actually quite fun. So I'm going to take an example, and this example is the Pico server, which we used in order to scale this 999-player game on the server side. I'm sorry if this is a little bit technical, but well, it's the name of the game. So, what's the problem? It's all about the rules. A game is rules. Without rules, no game. You need an idea, maybe, for the rules, which we talked about earlier. But the rules are the game. And imagine a game like chess, without any rules, or that people change the rules, or you played with a certain kind of rules and your opponent with different kinds of rules. It becomes a little bit complicated. So what you need often is a referee, and that is a server when it comes to online games. When I was a kid, if we didn't have a judge, we always ended up crying when we played soccer. So, but grown-ups, they need three judges. And this is basically how you scale. You need more judges the more people you have, and the more activity the game has, the more you get the point. So what do you do when you have tried to get 999 players playing football? How do you scale? This was like the million-dollar question. Everybody was working on this. I studied at Uppsala University, and an entire department was trying to solve this problem. And at the time, 2008, Sun Microsystem, they said, this is the #1 priority. We're going to put all our science people on it. And they created something called Project Darkstar. Some of you might remember. But we were a bunch of rock and roll engineers thinking that we want to solve this too. We want to have that huge battlefield where everybody could just, go crazy. So, yeah. Now, my presentation was... Mia? Thank you. So I asked my friend Todd at our team to make a little movie explaining what it does, what this Pico server does, and how we solve this problem. And it's a short little video, which actually the first time anybody are seeing it. No sound? Yes, I have sound. Okay, so Todd is not explaining. Here you see a game, a 3D game represented as 2D. And what you see here is the rectangles are the judges, it's the servers. And here is how they cooperate in order to handle one big virtual world. So the players can see the entire world, but the world is handled by different servers. And this is how it goes. So once a player is moving across a field and comes closer to another server, it gets handed over, and it looks like that. So this is the basic. So when people start moving, actually the servers start moving with them. Everything is very organic, and every time, like 5 times every second, this partitioning of the virtual world is happening, and handovers and making sure that the world has an optimal distribution of load. And adding and removing nodes is just super simple. So here we add a node, and it starts assigning players to that node. It does that smooth. the biggest problem normally is what happens if everybody goes to the middle? Because that is a normal problem. When you have a fight, people just want to go together and fight together in one place. The advantage of having the most players on your side in a fight is probably the side that's going to win. So here is integration architecture. It kind of shows how simple it is. You have a single core architecture, and we make it many core, just adding Pico server there, and it can handle the entire virtual world seamlessly and dynamically. And actually, the extra complexity given is only introducing 4 new RPCs for the game engine, which we integrate this in. And it handles a lot of traffic, this Pico server. And here we see some footage from the world record game. This is what it looked like in action. This is other gamers that have been recording and putting on YouTube, and we stole. So we handle 4.5 million, what we call network operations per second. That's 4.5 million messages per second. Compared to like an ordinary Battlefield game, it's like 60,000. And in our record game, we had over 1 million. But basically, the limitations is still, as in all distributed systems, it is the internode communication. And even though we scale beautifully, that is the only limitation. And we get a lot of nice features with our Pico server that will change the way people make the online games in the future. Yeah, and that's our homepage. So we make it a short little recap, I think. So friends, scale, referees. Yeah. So when we started making this Pico server, we had certain kind of design goals, because just scaling, having 999 players, making history was not just good enough, right? Because, yeah, we were kind of a crazy bunch. We wanted it to be a good tool. It's not just that you give people great capability. That's not good enough. So it needs to be integrated. It needs to be working and understood the way game developers understand and make their games already. So we decided it needed to be seamlessly integrated, which it is. And then it's all about reducing complexity. Again, a good tool should do that. It should help you. It shouldn't make the problem more complicated. It should reduce complexity. And as we saw, Pico server did that. And here, kind of maybe the main point, the main idea that we wanted to do was kind of change the way you think, especially as a server engineer or a network engineer, was like, no. Don't make game designers and players adapt to the hardware, because you have your server, and that has a CPU, and that's why you have to design your game in a certain kind of way. That's your restrictions. You can't have a battle. You can't have more than 64 players in a raid or something like that. We say, no. Change it. And the result should be freedom. And freedom looks like this today. Yeah. And I would also, that's freedom for you. So this is a freedom for game designers to imagine new kind of games, take away the restrictions of previous old, and very little have happened actually on the server side. So giving this, you can imagine the new kind of games that you can do with immense physics. We heard earlier that physics is a really big part of games. Here you can have with new kinds of very, very active and complicated physics. But okay, so that's my case. I think that Pico server is a good tool, and bad tools, you kind of recognize them. You normally do research different kinds of technology, deciding what is going to be the engine that you're going to develop your next game in. And these, as a tool maker, these are my advices to how you find poor tools. And it's going to probably help you save a lot of headache, heartache, and tears. And the questions you should ask, except the normal ones like how well documented it is looking at the debugging. How hard or easy is it to debug? Basically, that is very much a part of the integration. How well integrated is it into the development tools you already have? And load testing tools. I just love talking about load testing tools. Now, I just mentioned it briefly, but it really shows that if the provider of a tool also provides a load testing tool, it shows them that they care about their performance and they've been following it and they think that you should too. Then, direct and visual feedback. If you have a direct and visual feedback, that kind of tells you that the tool maker has conceptualization and abstraction of the problem and probably can help you using the knowledge that he has and build that into the tool. So, there we are. Questions?
Please, somebody else help me out here. I have a question. I actually don't see the problem as much on the server. I have right now a multi-server configuration that has like 2,000 players at any moment, but I see it on the client side because in my case, my game is airplane simulator is on the iPhone, on mobile applications. So you cannot have more than 10 players running there because the traffic is not that fast and the CPU doesn't support all the 3D graphics. So how did you manage to do that in your particular case for the FPS, first-person shooter? And if you have a solution for this for the iPhone or any mobile device?
Yeah. Okay, so how we did it was we did a lot of optimizations, of course, but you could actually do more. But the key is, of course, that if you solve the bottleneck on the server processing, then you will have a bandwidth problem. And we handle that very gracefully as well. But then you'll end up in the client side with the representation, graphical representation, and just sheer problems. And there you have GPU instancing, for example, that can be very helpful. So that's what we did. So using the GPU and instantiating players in different ways is one way to go through it. But we're helping mobile games with a new, together with Ericsson, the telecom company, working with Ericsson and mobile operators in order to bring a new kind of quality of service for real-time sensitive mobile games. So they get, you can play real-time games on mobile devices in November using this technology, which is not really possible now because the mobile network is really unfriendly for games. It has a lot of traffic and it doesn't know what's important and what's not, so it just throws away when it gets too crowded. Was that answering your question?
I have a couple of questions. The first one, are you open to collaborate with companies of other places like Basque Country?
Sure. Actually, we have giving away our technology for free to universities in both Spain and in Barcelona. And our technology is available for free for all nonprofit and educational uses. Basically, the Pico server, as many of you might just understand, is a way to do distributed calculations over several cores and basically having a supercomputer architecture that can handle massive computing in real time and distributing the results in real time as well. So it has a huge scientific quality, which is only being started to be tapped into.
And the second one, I told you yesterday, I will do that. So you said yesterday, I heard, that HTML5 is great, but no for gaming. Could you explain your point of view, please?
I was drunk?
No, you wasn't.
No, I wasn't drunk. We see a lot of interest in making games in HTML5. The basic there is that you have now access to the graphic card in the browser. No, yeah. You can do 3D rendering suddenly in the browser with quite easy. And with JavaScript, you can do amazing things. But that's it. It is actually probably a topic for an entire talk. But shortly, I would say that the tools are not there. The tools, as I mentioned a little bit here, when you go like, what is a bad choice of technology, it is, do you have all of these things? And with HTML5, you don't. Basically, it's also built on top of a standard which is not really consistent, and it's really hard to track, but we don't know. Right now, I wouldn't make games in HTML5, but who knows, in 3 years from now.
Everybody agree? Why?
Well, I mean, mainly because the other big, in my opinion, like Flash is what is traditionally used, and Adobe has themselves kind of put Flash on the end-of-life path. I know that Microsoft has done the same thing to Silverlight, which means Adobe and Microsoft have kind of conceded the battle. And I think Adobe is putting a lot of efforts now into Flash to HTML5 converters. And given, I think Flash was a terrible platform, except the tools were really good. Once the tools come in place, I think that HTML5 itself can support just about any gaming thing we want to do. And the tools, I don't think, are very far behind at all once an Adobe gets involved and stuff like that.
I agree that Adobe really should have the capabilities of making it viable, and a lot of people are just waiting to see what happened with the Flash developers. The Flash developers is a huge community, and everybody's trying to grab them. Unity have done their dance, trying to get them, and got a chunk of them. But the main body of Flash developers is still sitting, waiting to see what Adobe does. But it is in the future. If I would make a game now, hoping to have tools in the future, waiting to float with that tide, I wouldn't bet my project on it.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, let's first of all give a round of applause to Christian.
Thank you all.
And I'd like to invite the panelists from the last talk to come up as well, because we have symbolic gifts for you as well, and also a photo opportunity. And while that's taking place, just to remind you guys all tonight that there is a free dinner. I'm going to emphasize the free because that should be a good incentive for you guys to come, at Cafe Anchoki. I hope I said that right. And that's going to start at 9 o'clock. And then the plan for tomorrow basically is simply that there are going to be open workshops from 10 and then at 11. And then at 12:30, we have a keynote from Dante Simpson, who's been told that he has a striking resemblance to Michael Jordan. So that's just to let you guys know. And then we'll announce the results of the Startup 2.0 competition right afterwards. So I invite the speakers to come up. For the chapella moment. Yeah, the last panels. Here's our chapella. Oh, one for me? Oh, yeah. Okay, no problem. over here.